Alrighty, so news of the week on this Saturday evening, and there's no doubt that there's going to be a ton of news that we're going to talk about because in these last couple of days, yeah, there has been a lot of trades that has happened. There's been a lot of blockbuster trade as well, including one trade we saw a record amount of general allocation money was exchanged for a player. But before we talk about that, we first want to talk about the biggest news of this news of the week, and that, of course, is a new head coach that has been hired by an MLS team. So we talked about in the last news of the week episode, there were rumored that Ronny Delia is going to come back to MLS and he's going to be coaching for Atlanta United. Well, that rumor is now being confirmed. Atlanta has announced that Ronny Delia is going to be their new head coach, and honestly, this could work out very well for Atlanta, considering that he's had a lot of success during his time with NYCFC, even winning the MLS Cup back in 2021 as well. So yeah, there's no doubt that he is a guy that's going to bring some success to this Atlanta team. I mean, with this Atlanta team, I have a feeling this is going to be not only another big off season for them, but now that they decided to kind of hire guys that were part of the reason why the Sounders were so successful with Garth Lagerwey and Chris Henderson once again being there in terms of the front office. Something tells me that Atlanta could potentially be back, and I know that seems like it's the famous word before everything goes wrong for this team. But there's no doubt that if Atlanta makes the right move and Ronny Delia can be just as good as he did with Atlanta this season as he did throughout his year with NYCFC, there's no doubt that Atlanta can get themselves back to being a contender in the Eastern Conference. And what we saw in this Cinderella run that we saw with Atlanta might be just the beginning, and they might be going back to the insufferable kind of thing that we saw a couple of years ago. It's quite crazy to say that this year, everybody really likes Atlanta, and in terms of the feel good story that they had when it was just a couple of years ago, when I'm pretty sure those same MLS fans definitely does not like Atlanta in terms of the insufferability that their fan base could be. And again, that just kind of shows you how things can change in a heartbeat. Now, moving on in terms of next news, and now talking about the Super Draft. So, obviously, whenever I talk about the Super Draft, I only mention who is the number one draft pick because just like MLS itself, the Super Draft at times, it feels like it's very irrelevant. I mean, this season it's got so irrelevant that MLS doesn't even want to stream it. I mean, they could have easily done it on Apple TV, but they decide not to do it. And again, I've said it before with the Super Draft, while there are definitely some hidden gems in terms of the Super Draft, while there are players from the Super Draft that definitely made themselves a name in MLS, more times than not, it just does not work out whatsoever. And that number one draft pick is one of the example of it because the last couple of years, yeah, it turns and when it comes to the number one draft pick, it does not turn out well for the player. Though those players that were picked number one didn't really did very well in MLS. But that being said, for San Diego, of course, being the expansion team this season, they get first dibs in terms of the super draft pick. And with the number one pick, they decided to select defensive midfielder from UC Santa Barbara, in Manu Dua. Now, again, I don't know how good he is. Some people have kind of compared him to the likes of Diego Chara and Ozzy Alonso, and that's a big comparison considering those are two of the best defensive midfielder we ever had in MLS history, and especially if you compare to them not only being good in the league, but the longevity that they've shown time after time, years after years of consistency. Yeah, that's a lot to live up to if you're Monadua, and let's see if he does that when you play for San Diego FC. There's no doubt that he's gonna get minutes. I mean, we've seen before where number one draft pick usually they don't get minutes straight away, but when you're an expansion team, you are expected to get minutes. Especially when you're the number one draft pick, and we'll definitely see him get some minutes for the San Diego team heading into the expansion season. Speaking of San Diego, so they also picked up another couple players to get ready to build this squad for the first season that's going to be coming in the next couple of months. And part of that is them going to the reentry draft again. So for the stage two reentry draft, we saw a couple of players that were drafted there, but the most notable one from stage two of the reentry draft came from San Diego as they picked up Yayo Boa and Franco Negri as the two players in terms of the re-entry draft. Now, both of these players, the both players were kind of more like depth pieces for their respective team. I mean, Yayo Boa, it's hard to believe that just a couple of years ago he was a regular starter for this Columbus team. He even scored that big goal in MLS Cup as well. Now, obviously, in this previous season, he's kind of dropped down the pecking order, and it's unfortunate that he kind of lost his starting role because that Columbus team is just so stacked on the attacking end. But there's no doubt that I think this is a good pickup for San Diego. And if Yeboah can showcase that same ability that he had when he came to Columbus to San Diego definitely has a dynamic attacking player on their hand. And then Franco Negri, another player that again, kind of lost in the shuffle because in Miami, pretty much we're building a super team as well, and he wasn't really getting as much minutes compared to previous season. He's a good serviceable defender as well, and one that I think could be a good pick for San Diego in this entry draft. But yeah, there's no doubt that again these are two complementary pieces once again added to San Diego, and two pieces that maybe could be vital heading into this expansion season for them. Now, moving on, now talk about some trades and especially blockbuster trade because we definitely saw a couple of blockbuster trade, but probably the biggest trade that we saw in terms of these last couple of days is the New England Revolution decided to acquire Leo Campana from Inter Miami for a record uh general allocation money transfer of 3.25 million. Now, technically, it should be 2.5 million. Actually, I forgot to put the M here. It's not $3.25, but yeah, it's 3.25 million. That's actually the full amount if performance incentive would reach. But the base amount is 2.5 million general allocation money, which still is a record. It broke the record that we saw when FC Dallas, of course, acquired Paul Arriola from DC United a couple years back. That amount was $2 million. But yeah, that is a huge amount of fees that New England, of course, just pay. And there's no doubt that Leo Campana, we have seen that he is a proven goal scorer in this league. I mean, it's unfortunate that again he's another one of those player that kind of got lost in the shuffle with Inter Miami because when you have Messi and friends, and when you have the like of Luis Suarez playing that spot, it's hard to kind of break into that number 9 role. But even in the limited minutes, Leo Campana showed what he can do, and he have shown time after time that he can be a proven goal scorer for an MLS squad. And knowing New England desperately needed one, consider the Giacomo Veroni experiment has not worked out whatsoever, and there's still question what about his future with this Revs team. Yeah, I think this is a good picked up by New England. Though again, for the amount that it is, I think maybe you could say it's a little bit of an overpay, but there's no doubt that the potential is that definitely there, and that again, New England would really hope that Leo Campana would be just as good of a player for him doing his limited time with Inter Miami as he is now joining with this Revs team. Now that's not the only signing that the New England Revolution have made. Again, they've been very busy this off season, and it's also important to note that while yes, they have definitely done a lot of trades with the San Jose Earthquakes, because again, Bruce Arena just loves to get some of his former player, and we'll talk about how that seems like is a continued trend in these last couple of days. They also got a couple of players off of free agency as well. One of those is Alex Bono, who of course they got off of free agency. So remember when I talk about these DC United moving forward series, I talk about Alex Bono maybe be a piece for them, and how he's gonna have a competition between him and Luis Barraza for that number 1 spot. Well, no, it looks like that's not true anymore, because I didn't realize that he was his contract was not renewed by DC as well. But yeah, they decided to pick him off of free agency. Now, there's no doubt I don't think he's going to be a regular starter. I think Ivasic is still going to be the regular starter for the Revs. And Ivasic last season, he was definitely by far the better goalkeeper out of the last couple, or the two other goalkeeper in the goalkeeping being chart for this New England team. But there's no doubt that they definitely need some depth in terms of that spot. Especially, it seems like there's rumor that they're gonna actually trade one of their backup goalkeeper to none other than their favorite team to trade this offseason. That is the San Jose Earthquakes, that we'll talk about in just a bit. But having Alex Bono is not a backup option. I mean, Bono obviously is not a starting caliber, and we saw it last season with DC. He was not very good, and considered probably one of the worst starting goalkeeper in this league with the performance that he put last season for DC. Now, RSL, they have acquired Elias Manuel and four draft picks in exchange for 700,000 general allocation money and some sell-on fees to the New York Red Bulls. Now, it's always interesting to see when a team decided to get a ton of draft pick and sell them for general allocation money. We've seen some teams have been able to do so, trading draft picks for GAM, especially the Philadelphia Union. They just seems like they don't care about the super draft. They love to trade all of it away. But that being said, for RSL, especially as I'll also talk about in just a bit, that there's rumors that Anderson Julio might be moving on with this team. He might be joining with FC Dallas. This feels like it's kind of a like to like replacement, especially Elias Manuel, just like Anderson Julio, are very pacey. But the problem with both of those players, they couldn't finish if their life depends on. So yeah, I don't know. This could be a good picked up. I mean, there's no doubt that Elias Manuel have shown at times when he is able to put the ball into the back of the net and show his clinical finishing, then his groove is definitely there. But when he's not able to do so, yeah, we saw what happened last season for the Red Bulls. I mean, there were times where he was just single-handedly snake bitten for this team. But like I said, this feels like it's a like to replacement for Anderson Julio, who, like I said, in just a bit, it seems like he's on the trading block as well. Now, the LA Galaxy, they have acquired Sean Davis from Nashville SC in exchange for Gaston Brugman and up to 100,000 general allocation money. Now, originally, this was supposed to be just a swap trade, which is something we actually have not seen a lot in MLS. But later on, we found out that there's actually a performance incentive that Nashville can still get 100,000 general allocation money, depending on how Sean Davis, of course, did with the Galaxy. Now, there's no doubt that I think Sean Davis is one of the more underrated defensive midfielder in this league. And while last season, he definitely took a bit of a step off for Nashville. He is still a vital piece, and especially while Gaston Brugman, he's been a guy that's been there and been through the hard time for the Galaxy to a point where he become a champion. I mean, if there's a player on that team that is not named Ricky Puig that does not deserve to win MLS Cup, it's got to be Gaston Brugman. Again, he's been through the tough time that the Galaxy, of course, has been. He's been there for a while now, and the fact that he's finally able to ride through that process and able to become champion, that is such a great story to see, and it's unfortunate that he can't really quite continue that. But now joining Nashville, and that I think Nashville got a good player. I think it has shown that when he's on the pitch, he's definitely also a very underrated defensive midfielder as well. And really, I think overall this trade, both teams kind of win in terms of this trade. I mean, if you want to talk about who, of course, win this trade, who, of course, lost this trade, I think both of these teams won the trade because both of these teams are getting a good serviceable MLS midfielder in their display. And again, the thing that gets even better for Nashville is that if Sean Davis does at least perform well with the Galaxy, they get at least a little bit extra general allocation money in their bank as well. Now, moving on into the next news, from one good move to one that I have heard that this feels like it's an absolute fleece, and that of course is Atlanta United acquiring Mateus Click from DC United in exchange for a first round pick and 50,000 general allocation money. Now, it's important that it seems like Atlanta is going to take up 300,000 K in terms of the contract that Mateus Click has had. But from what I also heard, it seemed like even though Atlanta is taking uh up that part of that contract, DC is still paying for some of the contract that Mateus Click currently has, and that's kind of what makes this trade really bad with the way that one, not only the fact that you basically trade a player for pretty much nothing and a guy that is pretty much the most important playmaking piece for this DC team. I mean, for the past two seasons as well, Mateus Click has been pretty much leading the team in terms of that. And I understand that they obviously want to create a bit of a salary dump and maybe use some of that space to bring in another decent player, because while Mateus Click is good, He is a guy that is definitely near the twilight of his career, and definitely not worth the DP tag that DC decided to get him in the first place. But overall, again, just the fact that they didn't get a lot into that, and they still with how the 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 contract amount that they have to pay for Click, it just feels like if they're gonna do that in the first place, they might as well just keep him in the first place. They might as well not even bother in terms of trading him, and not to mention trading to a team that is in your same conference, and the team that I'm pretty sure DC and Atlanta fans. I don't know if they really kind of get along with each other as well. I mean, people don't know, but both of these teams at times they don't kind of like each other either, especially with the way that there's a lot. Both of these teams likes to trade with each other, and there's some former Atlanta player go to DC, and then it's kind of the other way around. So yeah, again, it's kind of a bit of a baffling move, and that I can understand why DC fans are very frustrated about this move. The fact that if they were gonna do this in the first place, they might as well just keep him and not trade him to an interconference rival. Now, one move that DC, of course, did get is acquiring Lucas McNulton in exchange for up to 200,000 general allocation money to Nashville SC. Now, I think I already mentioned this in the last news of the week episode. I think this is a good signing, consider Lucas McNulton when he was stepping in for Nashville because they had some injury issue at the back line. He was actually pretty decent. I mean, for a guy that is more known to be a backup in this league, he actually stepped up in a good way, and now going to DC, there's no doubt he's going to get more minutes. He's probably going to be one of the starter for this team, and especially with the way that this DC back line hasn't been very good, and some of these players in this back line that's kind of also started to age a little bit, hitting a young guy like Lucas McNulton and not really have to give up that much for it. I think it's a good steal for DC United. Now, moving on in terms of the next news and going back to talk about free agency. So San Diego, they have decided to sign Honorable Godoy off of free agency. Now, obviously, there's no doubt that Honorable Godoy, he has started to get up to the age now. We kind of saw last season with Nashville where he started to get up to the age to a point where he's not really kind of as a servable player for Nashville compared to what we see before. I mean, I still remember when the Quakes, of course, decided to sell him to Nashville, and I think he's probably another example of a player that not only didn't fit the Quake system, but a player that basically moved on to another team and found more success. That seems like that's been kind of the story for the Quakes. There's been so many players that I've seen the Quakes decide to sell on to another player and or to another team, and they turns out to have more success. Again, just pretty much a big indictment in terms of how bad the Quakes have been throughout the season. But again, there's no doubt that again, Honorable Godoy, he's not going to be a regular starter. I'm assuming this is probably going to just for veteran presence because he does has a lot of experience under his belt. But I don't expect San Diego is going to put him as a regular starter game in and game out with the amount of minutes he has already logged in. There's no way they can put him as a regular starter game in and game out and keep him healthy. Now, moving on in terms of the next news. So, talk about the San Jose Earthquakes. They have re-signed Nick Lima off of free agency. Now, there's a lot of backlash in terms of it. A lot of Quakes fans are not happy about this move because Nick Lima has been completely a shell of his old self. It feels like I talk about how every time when the Quakes decide to sell a player to another team, more times than not they were very successful. It isn't always the case. I mean, an example of that is David Bingham when he was sold to the Galaxy. It didn't quite worked out for him, and he pretty much become an outcast. And the same goes for Andrew Tarbell as well. He didn't really get too much minutes with the Houston Dynamo. I mean, he did have that legendary performance last year. I forgot who. Of course, he had that legendary performance. Where he made 11 save in the game. But overall, he's not a quality starter whatsoever. And Nick Lima, again, ever since he was shipped to Austin, he did what he did start in that first season for Austin game in and game out, but ultimately, he kind of dropped down the pecking order once Austin found better quality in terms of that spot. eventually shipped off to New England as well, and yeah, that didn't quite work so well. And again, this clearly is another signing of Bruce Ring, his former player. I mean, as I said, I will not be surprised if I look at any players on this New England team that Bruce Arena might bring. I think Dylan Barrero could be the next one to go, or even Brandon Bye as well. Now, obviously, I don't think New England would want to give up those two players, consider those are two of their key asset set as well. But with the way that New England has been trading some of the players that were part of that Bruce Arena regime to the Quakes, and the fact that it feels like it's more like Bruce Arena trying to get all his guys to play for the Quakes. Again, some will say that it's kind of dumb for them to get player from the Revs that didn't really do well last season, but you got to remember this is a that team was a team that wasn't coached by Bruce Arena, and whatever Bruce Arena did to that New England team, and really whatever Bruce Arena has always done when he coached a team, except for the national team that is, he always finds success. So I trust the fact that Bruce Arena is doing, making these move and bring guys from New England. He knows what he's doing. Though that being said, I think Nick Lima is going to be just a depth piece. There's no way. I think he's going to be a regular starter. He just have not looked the same ever since he left the Quakes in his first tenure. And in some way, you could say this is kind of a nostalgia moment too, because Nick Lima was one of the first homegrown that the Quakes, of course, signed way back. Now, FC Dallas, they have signed center back Lawless Abubakar off of free agency. So obviously, this is not a big surprise because Dallas is definitely trying to boost their the defense. I've even mentioned before, heading into this offseason, they do face a bit of a dilemma similar to the Union, where their defense definitely had an off season, a very unusual season as well. So, are you going to maybe replace some of those guys and try to booster that, or are you just thinking that it's just an outlier that both of those center backs just kind of had a rough year that they can bounce back in the next season? Well, again, it seems like maybe they're gonna stick with those two center back that they had, but at least they do have some backup option. And Lawless Abubakar, he's definitely not as good as he used to be. Really, but besides that first or 2 year with Colorado coming from Columbus, he has not looked like the same good defender that he has. And part of that is because he is starting to age a little bit. But again, it's a good complementary piece as well. Good backup option for Dallas as well. Consider again, if their defense started to fall apart again like they did last season, at least they hope that maybe Abubakar will step in and help booster that role. Now, speaking of defenders, so the Philadelphia Union has officially acquired Ian Galinovich from Newer Old Boys on loan. So this is a move that I've talked about before a couple of days, of the fact that it seems like the Union is going to start to create a fresh defensive core, at least part of it. That is, I mean, they did get trade their longtime defender Jack Elliott to the Philadelphia Union. It seems like they're probably going to keep Glesnes there as well, and we'll see whether or not if he will step in. I mean, that's a pretty big shoes to fill in terms of the shoes that Jack Elliott had left. Because besides last year, that partnership between Jack Elliott and Jacob Glesnes, and even before the partnership between Jack Elliott and Mark McKenzie before he was sold off to Europe, was very strong. And one of the reasons why a Jim Curran Union team always are considered one of the best defensive team in the league. And then moving on, and another center back has signed. Man, this really was a week of defenders being signed. We definitely had a lot of defenders that were signed, and a lot of center backs that were signed. And the New York Red Bulls have signed another center back. They signed center back Alexander Hack from Saudi club Al Kassai. I think that's how you pronounce. Now he is a German center back, and a guy that I'm assuming he had some Bundesliga experience. I didn't actually look at his full profile, besides the fact that his last club was in the Saudi Pro League. But yeah, there's no doubt that this is clearly a replacement for Andres Reyes that they lost to San Diego FC this off season, and we'll see whether or not if he can live up to it. I mean, that obviously that is definitely a tall order to ask because Andre Reyes was very good last season. He was one of the big reasons why the Red Bulls gone deep into to the playoffs to a point where they reached MLS Cup, and his presence that was missed during MLS Cup was all to see, at least in the first 20 minutes of the game. I mean, those the change of the defense at the last minute for the Red Bulls, it really kind of hurt them. Where if I think if Andres Reyes was actually in there from the beginning, or even in the game from the beginning, I don't think the Red Bulls would have been 2-0 down, just like what they found themselves in MLS Cup not long ago. Now, Orlando City, they have finally transferred Facundo Torres to Palmeiras for a club record $14 million transfer fee. So the Facundo Torres transfer saga seems like it has finally came to an end. For a long time, it looks like he was going to go to Palmeiras, but then Cruz Azul kind of made it interesting trying to hijack the deal. But now it is confirmed that he is going to be going to Palmeiras. And the fact that they got $14 million, one of the biggest outbound transfer we've ever seen in MLS, just to show you that Orlando is now on that chart of a team that can prove that they can develop some good young talent, eventually sell them off for a huge amount of money. And for what they did to Facu Torres, which I still don't understand then what happened to him in the first half of the season, where he just kind of completely fall off the map. But he did get himself back to his old self in the second half of the season. And credit to him doing that too, because when you're a player and you have a very off like kind of season, at least in the first half, it's very hard to try to rediscover that for the remaining of the season. But whatever Facu Torres did in the middle of the season, it quite kind of worked out because he looked like that player for Orlando throughout the years in the second half of the season. But that being said, this is going to be a big loss for Orlando City. And again, it's great to get some transfer fee, especially a hefty amount that is, and they can definitely convert that in terms of a huge amount of general allocation money, especially under the new rule. But obviously, the big question is whether or not if they can find a good replacement. We've seen so many times when teams sell their most important player for a big amount of money, but they don't reinvest it well, and yeah, you get the situation than what we saw with Atlanta United all these years as well. Now, PSV is also nearing a deal to sign Ismail Bajatovic from the New England Revolution. Now, this is not a big surprise because Ismail Bajatovic, one of the biggest young talent in this league, and with him playing so well in the last couple of seasons, and even with the Bosnian national team, it was a matter of time before he is going to be be shipped off to Europe, and I would not be surprised that he could be shipped off to Europe either in this winter transfer window or in the summer. I don't think New England is gonna hold on to him any longer. I think they definitely are gonna be listening to the transfer fee that teams are looking to get him, but there's no doubt there's a lot of big European team that is gonna look for him, and while PSV is definitely not one of the one of you consider to be a top tier European team, it is a team that regularly make it to the Champions League and regularly considered to be the top team in the Eredivisie as well. Now, there is a report suggesting that FC Dallas is looking to acquire Anderson Julio from RSL in exchange for Sam Junker and up to 500,000 general allocation money. So, like I said before, it feels like when RSL decided to get Elias Manuel, they know that they're getting him mainly because they're looking to move on from Anderson Julio. And with him going to Dallas, I feel like for Dallas they might have just got another Hotter O'Brien kind of type of player, a player that has a lot of speed going forward, but finishing is kind of a bit of a problem. I mean, if he can figure out his finishing, he can be such a lethal player, kind of similar to what Andres Gomez was with RSL before RSL decided to ship him off to Europe. But that being said, if this deal does go through, I think it's a good deal for both team as well. For Dallas getting a player that he can figure out his finishing to be a very dynamic player, and then for RSL getting some sums of that money, and not to mention even getting a player in Sam Junker, a very hardworking player from what I hear from Dallas fan. I think it's a win-win for both of these teams. Now, the San Jose Earthquakes, they are looking to acquire Earl Edwards Jr. in exchange for 100,000 50,000 K general allocation money to the New England Revolution. So I don't really need to say too much about this move. Again, I've said this before already. It feels like Bruce Arena. He's trying everything to get most of the players that he got from the Revs and bring him to the Quakes. And Earl Edwards Jr. I mean, he's kind of more of a backup kind of player, but knowing the fact that the Quakes need some backup help because I think they moved on from JT Marcinkowski this off season. Yeah, I think Earl Edwards Jr. While he's not considered to be a starting caliber player, he's definitely a good backup option to back up Danielle. And I wouldn't be surprised he might even get some more minutes with the Quakes as well because Danielle has kind of had his problem in terms of trying to stay healthy on the pitch these last couple of years. And then moving on into the last news in terms of all the transfers that has happened in this past week. So Charlotte is actually in talk to try to bring back Miguel Almiron to MLS. Now, obviously, Miguel Almiron time with Newcastle United has not been great whatsoever. I mean, it started off well, but it hasn't gone well whatsoever, and it feels like maybe there was rumor that he was going to come back to MLS. I mean, there's been rumor of that throughout the season as well. I thought Atlanta was probably going to do so, bringing the guy that was a big piece of why that they were so successful in the first two seasons. Especially, I thought we were gonna maybe even get a reunite of Joseph and Miguel Almiron with the way that both of those players were available on the market. But instead, it seems like Charlotte is the team to try to do so. And if they do decide to bring him back, I guess he's gonna be labeled as a DP player. And again, this is kind of an odd move for Charlotte to make, but at the same time, it's kind of a move that makes sense because they need some attacking help. But what's kind of odd about this is that they got Pet BL, and that I mean he plays in the same position as Miguel Almiron, unless if they decide to ship either the player not in out of position. So again, it's an interesting thing kind of move. Actually, I think I would say that he's also playing the same position as Kudetsky as well in that number 10 role. So again, I can understand why Charlotte decided to get a quality player to help their attack. That was a big liability last season and one of the reasons it kind of crippled their chances to go deep. But at the same time, if they would have made this move, they probably wasted their money and resources to sign some of the attacking talent that they bought during the summer transfer window that just hasn't really kind of worked out for the Charlotte team. And then now moving on in terms of talk about talk about news that is not related to signings. That is, so MLS has actually now released a stats to show the amount of general allocation money each MLS team has. And I'll tell you what, I'm surprised it has taken that long for the league to decide to finally do so because with the way that when we look at every single team and the amount of general allocation money that they have, some people will question how in the world do this team able to afford for all these players. Well, that's because maybe they have a lot of general allocation money. But now that we able to see it, we now know which team could be very active in the transfer market because if you have that sweet Garber buck, yeah, you're definitely going to try to spend it and maybe use that as leverage to bring in some good players to your team to boost your quality heading into next season. And then moving on to kind of news that's not related to MLS, but it's kind of interesting to talk about. So Netflix have signed a deal to be the exclusive broadcast right for the 2027-2031 FIFA Women's World Cup. And it's also interesting to note that Netflix is starting to really get into streaming sports as well. We already heard that they're going to be broadcasting those Christmas NFL games on December 25th. And obviously, we already know that they already broadcast the first big sporting event. We saw the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul fight that they, of course, had rights to. And yeah, let's just say that kind of moment is where a lot of people are just kind of questioning in terms of Netflix and their ability to stream sports. I mean, in that Tyson versus Paul fight, Yeah, it was not a great first impression for Netflix, and in fact, I think it kind of already damaged the reputation that Netflix has when it comes to streaming sports with the amount of buffering that was going on, and with the way that I know the FIFA Women's World Cup, it is still gonna draw some attention, especially in the U.S. As well. I wouldn't think it would be as much as what we saw in the Mike Tyson versus Logan Paul fight, and definitely probably not as much as what we'll see with those Christmas NFL games that Netflix has exclusive right to do. So again, there are still people who are a little concerned about whether if Netflix has the capability in terms of streaming sports in a good quality. But I also think that there are people that are kind of relieved the fact that Fox no longer have those right rights to broadcast women's game because let's just just say that I think people are really hoping that Fox doesn't have any exclusive right in terms of broadcasting soccer games in general because the quality that they have shown over the year, and it's not just MLS games, but just other games as well. It has just not been there whatsoever. In fact, it's been really poor quality, and this is why a lot of people were very happy to see when Turner Sports finally got the rights in terms of broadcasting uh U.S. games because now the quality in terms of those, and even when CBS got some of the rights to, and Paramount Plus got some of the rights of broadcasting U.S. men's national team games, it is so much better compared to when Fox basically broadcast those games. Now, moving on into the last two news. So, the Oakland Roots are looking to build their soccer specific stadium in the Howard Terminal site. Now, this is kind of very ironic considering, for a very long time, the A's been wanted to build the brand new stadium at the Howard Terminal site. It didn't quite work out. Well, it seems like now the Roots are looking to try to follow that same suit. Now, it'll be very interesting to see whether or not if they can do so, and especially when I look at the rendering of that, I mean that is that the fact that they've said it's a 25,000 soccer specific stadium, which literally it is right up there in terms of the most seat, not just in the USL. Well, actually, it's by far the most seat and the highest capacity in terms of a soccer specific stadium in the USL. Well, that's like MLS level in terms of capacity. And you just kind of wonder, is this maybe kind of a mind that the Roots might be thinking about going to MLS? I still think that at the end of the day, unless if John Fisher decided to do the same thing that he did to his other team and move the Quakes to Vegas, I don't know if the league would want to have a second team in the Bay Area. I mean, you could definitely put a second team there. We have seen before in other sports where when you put a second team in the Bay Area and when you put a team in Oakland, it's definitely viable as well. And especially with the way that Oakland has pretty much lost all their team in a span of just 10 years, it would kind of make sense. You would want to build um that culture back by getting a team in MLS. Although that's not gonna make Sacramento very happy, considering they're supposed to be a team that they've been wanted for a very long time, and it will be a huge slap in their face if Oakland takes them. But that being said, it is kind of ironic that if it does happen, again, all those years of the A's finally built that new stadium, and I've also looked at the rendering as I mentioned. I mean, that is a beautiful stadium. Like I cannot believe I'm about to say that stadium looks much better than PayPal Park itself. It just shows you how much ambition that the Roots, of course, have had, and there's a huge support for this team as well. I would argue in terms of the Bay Area, there's more fans that actually have interest in terms of the Roots, and especially from where I live, I've seen more Roots gear that is being sell even at the local Dick's Sporting Goods shop than I've seen with Quakes gear. That just shows you how big of an influence that they have, not just in the city of Oakland, but also in the Bay Area as well. And in case if the Roots does go to MLS, it should be a very interesting rivalry between them and the Quakes. I mean, I know they've already played each other in the U.S. Open Cup, but I think that's going to be a very good rivalry, especially if John Fisher is still going to be taking taking charge of the Quakes and is still in that ownership group, and the Roots comes into MLS. Boy, that's going to be an interesting kind of rivalry. That could be something similar to what we see with Columbus and Austin with Anthony Precor, of course, facing against the team that he formerly owned and the team that he basically that fan base basically hate him for a very long time. But lastly, in terms of the last news, as this video has already gone to 40 minutes, this has been probably the longest news of the week I've done. But yeah, the USL Championship, they have officially released the 2025 schedule. So this was kind of fresh off a couple of days after MLS released their schedule. The USL, of course, did the same thing. Now the USL didn't release the kickoff time for those games, but I'm assuming they're going to eventually do so. I'm very excited when they do eventually release the kickoff time because I'm gonna do some ground hops, do some sports hop series. Especially, I think going back to the Oakland Roots, they've already released one of the time in their season opener at the Coliseum, and there's no doubt I'm definitely gonna be attending that one because yeah, that's definitely a monumentous moment. Seeing an Oakland team basically play in the Coliseum after one of them left for Sacramento just a couple of months ago. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of this epic long news of the week episode. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and I'm pretty sure I probably missed some key news that has happened in the new news cycle. But in case if I did, let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.